Welcome to Drumshee Days, starring Maura Logue and David Ison.
Nora Gallagher back with yous again with another story from Drumshee. Our story tonight is Going Nowhere Fast. Drumshee was a wee hidden gem of a place in the heart of Donegal. And in the 50s and 60s, only one lane road led to and from Drumshee. Now the potholes were many, but the cars were few. I mean, the only sound you might hear on the Drumshee road would be the clacking of donkey's hooves, or maybe the squeaking of a bicycle wheel, or maybe the put-put of a Honda 50. That would be about the height of the traffic flow. But in 58, modern Ireland started to encroach in Drumshee. The ministry announced a new forestry plantation scheme at Drumshee. Well, that brought forestry men to the area. And with forestry men came more vehicles. Aye, as Hugh John, the bingo bus driver, used to say in the late 59, he says, "Jesus, it's a tight squeeze now on the Drumshee highway."
Headed down to that rainbow's end. Well, we'd be together with our friends, 'cause we're on the road again.
Now, business was booming at the Railway's End Hotel. The bowl Nancy Dolan had 4 of the forestry men lodging with her full time. Oh aye, business was booming for Nancy Dolan. So much so that I got a full-time job at the Rainbow's End Hotel. I was a busy girl, I can tell you. And what with the newcomers in the area, sure, the locals had to come into the hotel bar to have a gawk and to get to know you. And soon, the Rainbow's End Hotel bar was busy at lunchtime and busy in the evenings. I mean, if you passed by on the Drumshee Road, you'd see maybe a bicycle or two, or maybe a Honda 50, or a donkey parked up. All the crack was at Nancy Dolan's hotel bar once the forestry men arrived. You see, Nancy would always get her own way. And she was great at charming and cajoling the forestry men. Well, after all, Nancy Dolan was the queen of the Rainbow's End Hotel. Now, another queen was half-deaf in one ear, Mary T. She was the queen of the Drumshee Road. You see, half-deaf in one ear, Mary T. was the only woman driver with a car around Drumshee. Oh, a fact that she was very proud of. She loved driving around in her Austin A4. You see, Mary T. learned how to drive when she used to drive the ailing father around, when the eyesight had started to fail him. Now, whether she didn't hear his driving instructions or whether she didn't give a hoot, she seemed to have missed out on the essentials of the driving. I mean, half deaf in one ear, Mary T, she'd never heard of rear view mirrors. She'd never heard of indicators. She'd never heard of dip lights. And she didn't see any reason of going into a higher gear other than second gear.
First gear, it's all right. Second gear, hang on tight. Third gear, it's out of sight. Faster, faster, faster.
Now, folks around knew about her driving and about the way that she'd hog the road. And they looked out for her, and of course, you see, they manoeuvred around her setting out times. Because they all knew that teaching an old dog new tricks would be going nowhere fast. Like Mary T, when she was behind the wheel of her Austin A4. And God help you if you got stuck behind Mary T, because that's where you'd be. You could blow the horn till the cows came home. It wouldn't bother Mary T, as the forestry men soon began to find out. You see, Mary T was the queen of the Drumshee Road.
Driving down to old Drumshee, you're sure to run into that Mary T. Behind her you'll always be, because she's the queen of the road.
I remember a time when Dr. O'Shea from the next parish was called to Drumshee. Hadn't Petey the post taken a turn when he was out delivering the post? Ah, poor Petey the post, sure he was done out. What with all the extra letters arriving to Drumshee addresses from the Pen Friends section of the Ireland's Own magazine, his postbag was getting well heavy. You see, the Merry Widows were running a great service with their Pen Friend corresponding service for those looking for love. But poor Petey the post, bless him, carrying around all that extra weight of potential love, and that with his daily hangover. Ah, sure, it upset his equilibrium. The doctor had to be called. But the day that the doctor arrived into Drumshee, who happened to be on the road but half deaf in one ear, Mary T. Do you think she noticed the doctor driving behind her? Not a bit. Poor Dr. O'Shea suffered the going nowhere fast for about 2 miles, but japers, he had enough of it at that stage. Drastic measures were needed. Do you know what he did? He stopped his own car, a Woolsey. He gets out of the car, leaves it in the middle of the road, and he walks briskly up to Mary T and her still driving along. He knocked on her driver's window. She looked and she saw the good doctor, and she pulled to the side of the road. She winds down the window and she gives the doctor a big hello and a smile. And he gives her a hello back and tells her that he's on an errand to see a patient. She suggests, if you don't mind, that she'd stay at the side of the road where she was to allow the doctor to get on his mission of mercy. The doctor went back to his car, got in and drove on and drove past, Mary T and her waving away at him. Now, when Mary T told the story later on, she was economical. All she told was, I was in my car today, and the good Dr. O'Shea came along, and didn't he get out of his car, and he knocked on my window to say hello to me. I must be a very important person, says she. But Mary T's driving was beginning to become a concern for the forestry men. Because every time they headed out on their way to or from work, who'd be on the road ahead of them but half-deaf in one ear, Mary T.
Driving down our old one lane, you know I run into Mary T again, so move it on over. Just move it on over. I just gotta say, get out of the way.
Nancy Dolan, you know, being the enterprising businesswoman that she was, had an arrangement with her forestrymen lodgers. They used to come back to the Rainbow's End Hotel at 1 o'clock every day for their lunch dinner, a service that Nancy Dolan provided at a reasonable price. They'd have their mixed grill lunch dinner, which I cooked for them, and then they'd head back to work to the forestry plant site. But Lord knows, every time they headed back out to work, who would be on the road ahead of them but half-deaf in one ear, Mary T. Now, it was funny at the start, but after a while, it became a lesson in patience. Something had to be done. Well, did Nancy Dolan come up with the right plan? A plan that would suit herself and the forestrymen. She suggested to the men that they be as well lingering back, staying at the Rainbow's End Hotel after their lunch dinner for about 20 minutes or so, to allow Mary T to get on down the road, and it would save them getting frustrated driving behind her. But she had a wee secret plan that they didn't know anything about. She called it her lunchtime hospitality plan. She had me, Nora Gallagher, light the fire in the bar at lunchtime. We never lit the fire in the bar at lunchtime, but I did what I was told. And when the men had their lunch dinner, Nancy Dolan comes into the dining room and she invites them all to come in to warm themselves up at the great turf fire that she had in the bar, and to take their ease in there for 20 minutes before they got on the road to avoid half-deaf in one ear Mary T. Well, the forestry men, of course, obliged, and in they went, and by heavens, that turf fire looked inviting. And what with the rain outside pelting against the window, they were set. Nancy Dolan whispers in my ear, Nora, once the men settle in and the firelight reflects off the stout bottles, I'm sure they'll be asking for a bottle of stout. And what harm's in it? A bottle or two of stout? No harm at all, Nora. Sure enough, then and there, Dan Breen, the forestry man, shouts, I'll have one too, Nancy, pipes up Johnny Maguire. The thought that was in everybody's mind was now out in the open, and the boys settled into their bottles of stout, and the crack would get going, and at only lunchtime. Of course, you'd have a few locals in, and the conversation used to all be about half-deaf in one ear Mary T, and solutions to the problem of her driving nowhere fast. You have to work around her. You have to check her setting out times and get ahead of her, because if you're stuck behind her, you'll get nowhere, said Gary Ogue, owner of a Honda 50. Jesus, she'd make a great horse driver, said Petey the post. Aye, indeed, said Gary Ogue. What about a bicycle? What about a bicycle built for two, for her and her boyfriend, Jimmy Rua the Red? Wouldn't that look sweet? Aye, indeed, 'Tis a bicycle might suit the pair of them better, for I hear Jimmy Roo of the Red's allergic to her driving, says Gary Oak with a nod.
Oh, Mary, give me your answer true, because I'm half crazy over my love for you, but it won't be a stylish marriage. You know I can't afford a carriage. God, you look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.
The lunchtime trade at the Rainbow's End Hotel bar went swimmingly. That is until the department inspector arrived. Didn't he arrive to Drumshee at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday of a weekday? And he came into the Rainbow's End Hotel to the reception to ask directions to the forestry plant site. Didn't I spy him? He introduced himself to me. I knew by the cut of him that he was a government department man. He told me that he was visiting the forestry site. And I told him that I'd get the proprietor, Nancy Dolan, she loved being called the proprietor, to help him with the directions. So I runs into the bar, where the boys are sitting with their bottles of stout and Nancy Dolan entertaining them. And I told them to put a scurry on themselves that the inspector was there. And I sent Nancy Dolan out to him to the rescue. Well, Nancy swings out with a red lipstick smile and she engages with the inspector in small talk and long-winded directions, while the forestry men scooted out the back door of the bar, took the handbrake off the flatbed truck, pushed it down the road a bit before they all got in and got on. Just as half-deaf Mary T was coming round the corner at the Rainbow's End Hotel, well, that was a close shave. I flagged half-deaf and one-ear Mary T down, and I chatted to her. And I was asking her how she was and how the boyfriend was, Jimmy Roo of the Red, and how Jimmy Roo of the Red's sister, Maura Logue, was doing. And wasn't she the great woman altogether, Maura Logue, and all her excitement about all things, like bingo and days out to knock. And I said to half-deaf Mary T that she was some woman. Any woman that would be driving all the way on the Drumshee Road to check one flock of sheep at one end of the townland and driving back to check another flock of sheep at the other end of the townland and then driving out of an evening to go and pick Jimmy Roo of the Red up for their evenings out. I told her she was a great woman altogether. Out of the corner of my eye don't I see the department man coming out of the Rainbow's End Hotel and getting into his car. So I waves Mary T on and I tell her to get on about her business, that I shouldn't be delaying her. And I watched her as she sputtered on into first gear and then into second gear, where she settled and started to drive off, going nowhere fast. And the department man was driving off and him stuck behind half-deaf and one-ear Mary T's jalopy. The only thing Nancy Dolan and I knew was that the forestry men would be well sober and hard at work when the department official would arrive to the forestry site. So that put an end to the lunchtime shenanigans. Now, in case the inspector might arrive and catch them, there had to be a stop at it. But Nancy Dolan not wanting to encourage sober ways. She didn't like to encourage that kind of thinking at all. So she came up with Plan B, the hospitality plan. She'd have a big fire on in the bar every evening when the men would come back from work. And after they had their tea, dinner, got out of their wet clothes, they would head into the bar where they'd all settle in for an evening. And Nancy Dolan smiling every time the till rang. And then at a certain time, I remember, all the lads would get up and they would run over to the window, waiting for half-deaf and one-ear Mary T to come round the corner like clockwork. And as they'd see her coming round, they'd all give a cheer and they'd say, "Here she comes, the Queen of the Drumshee Road."
Driving down to old Drumshee, you're gonna run into Mary T. Behind her you'll always be, because she's the Queen of the road, because she's the Queen of the road.
So there you have it. Traffic management, Drumshee style in the 1960s. And half-deaf and one-ear Mary T go nowhere fast. Our next story, folks, will be aired tomorrow night, Saturday, the 16th of October at 8 p.m. on Donegal County Council YouTube channel. And we'll bring all the characters together again for our last story, Toe Tapping, the big dance competition. Till then, from himself and myself, we'll say Ihawai, Slán, agus Banach.